I'll be speaking to Rebecca Vilkomerson, who's the executive director of Jewish Voice for Peace, at the big meeting they're holding in Baltimore, Maryland. Rebecca, there's been some real evolution in thinking about BDS, boycotts, divestments, and sanctions. I want to get into that, but tell us first about JVP. When did it start, and how has it changed?
It's gone through, like you said, a real evolution in all kinds of ways. We actually started in about 1996, it was before my time, in the Bay Area. And it was really around the time of the Second Intifada when it I think the kernels of where it is today really began, the sort of deep DNA, where my first action with JVP was taking over the Israeli consulate in San Francisco right after the massacre in Jenin in the spring of 2002. So I know by then we had a very explicit political analysis around the differences in power and what our responsibilities were as Jewish Americans. And so I think that's the kernel we've taken as we've grown. So we became a national organization in 2005, and then we really started to expand when we really committed to having an organizing program. So starting in 2009, I think we had 6 chapters, and now we have almost 70. So I think
70?
Almost 70. Yeah, between 65 and 70. You know, there's always some that are growing, and that sometimes they make it and sometimes they don't. So I would say almost 70, to be fair. And many of those, several dozen of those, began just since this summer. So I think just like for me, the Second Intifada was a time that I became involved in this issue. For many people came in during Cast-Led, and now many people are coming in since the war in Gaza. People just reach their breaking points during these big moments.
It's unfortunate that there's growth in JVP, and it depends somewhat on horrors and atrocities over there.
We've been grappling with that all weekend, from the very beginning all the way through. We were just talking earlier about a memorial service we had this morning for everyone who died in Gaza, and it was a real, I think, emotional release for people. And we've been, I think, trying with the most integrity we possibly can to be real about the fact that the urgency we feel around the organizing is about making sure this never happens again, and that we can mourn and feel urgent and feel angry and feel horrified, and at the same time we can celebrate the hope that we feel by seeing a new Jewish community emerging out of it that's willing to take on these policies that enable it to happen.
So now let's talk about the BDS and the positions. JVP has not been shy about getting involved in the area, but there were certain limits. And could you describe what the limits were and then how things have changed?
Well, it's been a real, again, evolution over time. We actually started doing different forms of economic pressure. We started in 2004, back when we started by targeting Caterpillar. And this was back when we were just a Bay Area organization. We already had sort of grandiose dreams of having an impact on U.S. policy. And after Rachel Corrie was killed by a Caterpillar bulldozer, we decided to buy some shares in Caterpillar and start doing shareholder activism around it. So that's really where we started from. And then we had a selective BDS policy for quite a number of years, where we focused on the occupied territories. And in 2011, we further revised our policies that said we supported all the three portions of the Palestinian call, and we were continuing to focus on campaigns that focused on the occupation. And I think what's always been different from our position from other groups that endorse a settlement boycott is that we never did undermine the Palestinian call for boycott, divestment, sanctions. We work very closely and in partnership with the Boycott National Committee, and they have been incredibly patient with us and have always said to us and to people around the world, your local communities, the local circumstances, you should do the campaigns that can make a change at this moment according to what your strategic analysis is, as long as you don't try to say that one kind of boycott is okay and another one's not. And so I think we've always had a position of, we may not do boycotts on all of Israel, but we support people's right to do it. It's not anti-Semitic to do it. And so I think the key change that we've had since then, in the last year we went through a process that culminated in us endorsing the Palestinian boycott call. In some ways it's not that different a position than we had before. For years now we've been saying we're part of the BDS movement. Now it's just official. But what we are still doing is working with our chapters to think about how to do strategic campaigns, and I think that's the real contribution we can make to the movement, that we're pretty good organizers, and we have been running campaigns that have won, and we plan to run a lot more. And so we want to make sure that from all the way from the local level to the national level, that we're working with chapters that choose targets, whether they're in the occupied territories or whether they're cultural boycott targets or whatever they may be, targets that move the conversation forward in this country.
And in accepting the Palestinian call officially, they had various parts to it. One which was that these kind of pressures go on until there's the discrimination within 48 Israel be ended, and the occupation be ended of the territories, and the right to return. And that's pretty remarkable for a Jewish organization.
It's sort of interesting. To me, that doesn't feel like a change. We've always had talked about the right of return in our mission statement. We've always talked about, maybe not always, but at least since the time that I've been ED, we've always talked about the equality of Palestinians, so the citizens of Israel. We've always talked about the entirety of Palestinian rights, not just about the rights of people under occupation. So I suppose it codifies it a bit more, but to me, that does not feel like a big change. It feels like, again, like a sort of a confirmation of where we already were.
And now, just to end by talking about the explosive growth of things, here you're in a big hotel in Baltimore, and I heard people describe how they first started in very small. How many people are at this meeting?
600. We sold out like 6 or 8 weeks ago.
And you had an op-ed in the Washington Post, which is a huge breakthrough.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the only union hotel in Baltimore. That's the first thing I'll say.
We'll mention that.
We've had, this, like I said, this summer really changed things for people, and we've had this enormous sense of urgency and people coming to us, way more young people, which I think is very much reflected in all the polls that are coming out that shows there's a real generational shift. But for me, being here, what's been the most exciting part of it has been the conversations I've had with people who are here for the first time, and they just say, I feel so crazy at home, and here I feel normal again. And it's a sense of spirit and community and togetherness that I hope people will leave the weekend sort of recharged and re-energized to continue the work that they need to do in their own communities.
And for people who want to get in touch and maybe join or learn more about the group, your website or contact information?
Yes, thank you for asking. www.jvp.org. And also people can send an email to info@jvp.org if they want to start a chapter, join our rabbinical council, join our artist council, join our academic advisory board, join our young people's work or student work. There's all different ways to plug in now, and so there's a place for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.